I agreed to house sit for my manager, Marissa, because she offered me $200 and told me all I had to do was feed her cat, water the plants, and bring in the mail. Her house was in one of those quiet neighborhoods where every lawn looked recently cut and every porch had matching chairs. It was nicer than any place I had ever stayed in by myself. 2 stories, clean kitchen, big living room, security cameras outside, and a back patio that faced a line of woods. Marissa gave me the full tour before she left. Cat food is under the sink. Trash goes out Thursday. Don't open the basement door because the latch is broken and it sticks. Other than that, make yourself comfortable. The cat's name was Mabel. She was old, fat, and acted like she hated everyone. Marissa said I probably wouldn't see her much. The first night was normal. I ordered food, watched TV, and tried to enjoy having a whole house to myself. Around 10, Mabel came out from behind the couch, stared at me like I owed her money, then walked into the kitchen. At midnight, I turned everything off and went upstairs to the guest room. The house sounded different once I was in bed. Not scary at first, just bigger. The fridge clicked downstairs. The air vents popped. Somewhere outside, a branch tapped against siding. At 1:17 a.m., I woke up to the cat growling. It was low and steady, coming from the hallway outside my room. I sat up and listened. "Mabel," I whispered. The growling stopped. Then I heard the basement door open. It was a slow sound, wood pulling away from the frame. A soft creak from the hinges. I froze with one hand on my phone. Marissa had told me the basement door stuck, so I figured maybe it hadn't been shut all the way and the air pressure pulled it open. That was the kind of explanation you reach for when you are alone in someone else's house and really need things to make sense. I turned on the lamp and walked to the hallway. Mabel was at the top of the stairs, back arched, staring down toward the first floor. Her tail was puffed up. The house was dark below except for the small light over the stove. I called out, "Hello?" I hated myself for saying it. It sounded weak. No answer. I went downstairs holding my phone like it could protect me. The basement door was open about 6 inches. Cold air came out of it. I stood there for a few seconds, listening. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No breathing. Just the low buzz of the kitchen light. I pushed the basement door closed until it clicked. Then I checked the front door, back door, and all the windows I could find. Everything was locked. The alarm panel by the garage door glowed green. I went back upstairs, but I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning I texted Marissa. "Hey, the basement door opened last night. Is that normal with the latch?" She replied almost right away. "Yeah, it does that sometimes. Just push it hard until it catches. Sorry, forgot to mention it." That made me feel better for maybe 5 minutes. The second night I made sure the basement door was fully shut. I even pulled on the handle twice. It didn't move. At 11:30, I fed Mabel, locked up, and went upstairs. I was almost asleep when my phone buzzed. It was a security notification from Marissa's camera system. Motion detected, backyard. She had given me access in case a package came or something happened outside. I opened the app. The backyard camera showed the patio, the grill, and the black tree line beyond the yard. At first, I didn't see anything. Then the motion light clicked on. A man was standing at the edge of the patio. He was wearing jeans and a dark sweatshirt. His hood was up, but I could see part of his face. He looked older, maybe 50. Thin, pale, calm. He wasn't trying to hide. He was looking directly at the camera. My stomach turned cold. I called 911 and whispered the address. While I was talking, the man stepped closer to the back door and looked through the glass. I could hear the dispatcher asking questions, but I barely answered. I was watching the live feed. The man lifted one hand and placed something against the glass, a key. Then he lowered it and stepped back into the dark. I ran to the guest room door and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Downstairs, the back door handle moved. Once, twice, then silence. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way. I stayed in the guest room with the lamp off, sitting on the floor beside the bed. Mabel was somewhere in the hallway making that low growl again. A few minutes later, I heard sirens. The police checked the yard, the woods, the patio, and the street. They didn't find him. The back door was still locked, but there was a greasy handprint on the glass. One officer asked if the homeowner had any exes, angry relatives, or workers who might still have access. I said I had no idea. Then he asked if I wanted to stay somewhere else. I almost said yes, but Marissa was on a cruise with bad service, Mabel needed food, and I told myself the police had scared the guy away. I also didn't want to seem dramatic. That sounds stupid now, but at the time, I felt embarrassed, like I was overreacting, even though a man had stood in the backyard with a key. The officer told me to keep every door locked and call again if anything happened. I slept with the guest room door locked and the lights on. The third day, Marissa finally called. Her voice kept cutting in and out, but I explained what happened. She went quiet. Then she said, "What did he look like?" I told her. Another long pause. "That sounds like my old neighbor, Paul," she said, "but he moved away last year." "Would he have a key?" "No," she said too fast. "No, he shouldn't." I didn't like that answer. That evening, I decided I would stay one more night, then leave early in the morning. I fed Mabel, put fresh water down, and kept every light on downstairs. Around 9, Mabel started acting strange again. She sat in front of the basement door and stared at it. I tried to pick her up, but she hissed at me. The basement door was shut. I had checked it over and over. Then something tapped from the other side. 3 soft taps, not a knock. More like someone touching the wood with one finger. I backed away. "Mabel, come here," I said. The cat didn't move. The handle turned halfway. I stopped breathing. It turned back. Then it turned again, slowly, like someone was testing it from the basement side. I grabbed my keys and ran for the front door. Before I reached it, the security alarm started beeping. Not the loud siren, just the entry delay. The kind that means a door has opened. I looked at the alarm panel. Zone 3. Basement. I had never been in the basement. I didn't even know there was an outside basement door. The beeping got faster. I ran out the front door without shoes and got into my car. I locked myself inside and called 911 again. From the car, I could see the house through the windshield. Every downstairs light was still on. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the kitchen lights went out, then the living room, then the upstairs hallway. One by one, the house went dark. The police arrived faster that time. They searched everything. This time they found the outside basement door open. The lock was old and scratched up. Inside the basement they found muddy shoe prints and a folded towel placed under one small window. Nothing was stolen. No one was down there. But the part that made me feel sick was what they found taped to the wall near the basement stairs. A spare key. It had Marissa's name written on the tag. When Marissa got home, she told the police the key had gone missing months earlier. She thought she had misplaced it. Then she admitted Paul, the old neighbor, used to help with repairs around the house. He knew about the basement door. He knew her schedule. He knew she traveled. The police found him 2 days later in a motel about 40 minutes away. He still had a copy of the house key in his wallet. Marissa called me crying and apologizing. She said she had no idea he was still coming around. I believed her, but I never went back to that house. What stays with me is how calm he looked on the camera. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't nervous. He stood there like he had done it before. And sometimes I think about that first night when the basement door opened by itself and I walked downstairs to close it. I still wonder if he was on the other side, standing in the dark, holding his breath, waiting to see if I would open it wider. I was house-sitting for a woman named Rebecca, a friend of my mom's from work. She lived about 20 minutes outside town in a one-story brick house with a long gravel driveway, a fenced backyard, and a detached garage that looked older than the house itself. She was going to Florida for 8 days to visit her sister and needed someone to feed her cat, water the tomato plants, bring in the mail, and make the house look occupied. Easy money. She gave me a key, walked me through everything, and made a big deal about the cat's food schedule. The cat's name was Pepper, and he was one of those older cats that looked at you like he already knew you were going to disappoint him. Before she left, Rebecca pointed toward the garage and said, "You don't have to go in there. Nothing you need is in there." I remember that clearly because of how fast she said it. Not nervous exactly, just firm. The first 2 days were normal. I'd stop by after work, feed Pepper, scoop the litter box, water the plants, and watch TV for an hour so the house had some noise. I didn't sleep there at first. Rebecca said I could, but I had my own apartment and preferred my bed. On the third day, there was a storm bad enough to knock out power in half the county. My apartment lost electricity, but Rebecca's house still had it, so I decided to stay there overnight. I texted her to let her know. She responded right away. "Of course, make yourself comfortable. Just please keep Pepper inside." That night around 11:30, I smelled it again. It was stronger near the kitchen. I checked the trash first, then the fridge, then under the sink. Nothing. Pepper sat in the hallway staring toward the back door with his tail tucked around his paws. The back porch light was on, so I looked through the glass. The garage sat across the yard, dark except for the security light above the side door. Rain was still coming down, soft but steady. Beside the garage, near the fence, was a blue plastic barrel. I hadn't noticed it before. It was one of those thick outdoor barrels with a black lid and metal clamp around the top. At first, I figured it was for rainwater, maybe compost, maybe old yard chemicals. But the smell was coming from that direction. I told myself I was being dramatic. Old barrels stink. Garages stink. Country yards stink. Still, the smell had a weight to it, like it was pushing into the house. I slept badly on the couch, waking up every hour to Pepper moving around. He kept going to the back door, then coming back to the living room, then going again. The next morning, the rain had stopped. I watered the tomatoes even though they didn't need it, mostly because I wanted an excuse to look around without feeling like a creep. The barrel was still there. Up close it looked old, but clean. No dirt on top, no leaves gathered around the base. It had been moved recently, or at least placed there recently. The ground around it was soft from the rain, and I could see marks in the mud where something heavy had been rolled from the garage door to the fence line. The smell was worse outside. I covered my nose with my shirt and stepped closer. There were flies around the lid, not a swarm, just enough to make my stomach tighten. I texted Rebecca. "Hey, there's a strong smell by the garage. Is there anything in that blue barrel I should know about?" 3 dots appeared almost right away, then disappeared, then appeared again. Her reply came a minute later. "Don't open anything outside. I'll have someone handle it when I get home." That answer did the exact opposite of calming me down. I stood there holding my phone, staring at the barrel. Pepper was in the kitchen window, watching me through the glass. I went back inside and tried to act normal. I made coffee. I answered emails. I watched half an episode of some show without remembering a single scene. Every few minutes I'd glance toward the backyard. Around noon, an old white pickup slowed in front of the house. It didn't pull into the driveway. It just rolled by slowly, then stopped near the mailbox. I could see the driver from the front window, a man in a baseball cap with his arm resting on the open window frame. He looked at the house, then toward the garage, then kept going. Maybe a neighbor, maybe nothing. 10 minutes later, Rebecca called. Her voice sounded too cheerful. "Hey," she said. "I saw your message. Sorry, service has been weird down here." "You texted back," I said. There was a pause. "Right. I mean, calls have been weird." I didn't say anything. She continued. "That barrel is old yard waste. It probably filled with rainwater and got gross. Please just leave it alone. I don't want you messing with anything heavy." "Someone drove by really slow," I said. "White pickup." Another pause. "Lots of people live on that road." "Rebecca, is everything okay?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Everything is fine. Please don't open the garage and please don't touch the barrel." That was the second time she said please. After the call, I should have left. I know that now. I should have locked the door, put Pepper's food down, and never gone back. But when you're standing in somebody else's kitchen in broad daylight, fear feels embarrassing. It feels like something you should be able to reason with. By evening, the smell had seeped into the back half of the house. I found towels in the laundry room and shoved one at the bottom of the back door. It helped a little. Pepper wouldn't eat. He sat on top of the fridge with his eyes wide. At 9:12, the motion light by the garage came on. I froze in the hallway. Through the back door glass, I saw the yard lit up in that harsh white glow. The barrel was still by the fence. The garage side door was shut. Rainwater shined on the grass. Then I saw the lid move. Not much. Just a lift on one side, like pressure had built underneath it. I stood there with my hand over my mouth. The lid settled again. I kept staring until my eyes burned. Nothing else happened. I called Rebecca. No answer. I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. I almost called the police right then, but I had no idea what to say. "There is a bad smell and a barrel lid moved" sounded insane. I pictured an officer opening it and finding rotten grass clippings, then Rebecca coming home furious that I had made a scene. So I waited. Around midnight, the smell became unbearable. I had a headache, and my throat felt coated. Pepper came down from the fridge and stood at the back door, making a low, broken sound I'd never heard from a cat before. That was enough. I grabbed my keys, walked outside, and crossed the yard with my phone flashlight on. The barrel looked bigger in the dark. The metal clamp around the lid was secured, but not all the way. One side sat loose, leaving a thin gap. Flies crawled in and out of it. I didn't open it. I swear I didn't. I just got close enough to shine my light into the gap. At first, all I saw was black plastic. Then I saw hair. Long, dark hair pressed against the inside of a clear garbage bag. I backed away so fast I nearly fell. My first thought was that it was a wig, some old Halloween thing, a prank, a mannequin head, anything else. Then the bag shifted. Not a big movement. Small, slow, like something inside had settled after the barrel cooled in the night air. I ran inside, locked the door, and called 911. The dispatcher asked me to stay on the line. I kept watching the backyard from the kitchen, shaking so badly I had to hold the phone with both hands. While I was waiting, headlights appeared at the end of the driveway. Not police lights, a white pickup. It came up the gravel without rushing, slow and steady. The headlights swept across the living room wall, then cut off. A truck door shut. I crouched behind the kitchen counter. A man's voice called from outside. "Rebecca?" I didn't answer. He walked around the side of the house. I could hear his boots in the wet grass. He didn't come to the front door. He went straight to the backyard. The motion light came on again. I raised my head just enough to see him. Same baseball cap, same white truck. He stood beside the barrel with his hands on his hips, looking down at it like he had expected it to be somewhere else. Then his head turned toward the kitchen window. I dropped to the floor. The dispatcher kept asking what was happening. I whispered that someone was outside. She told me officers were close. The back doorknob turned once, just once. Then a man's voice, calm and low, came through the glass. "You shouldn't have looked." I couldn't breathe. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten me. That was what made it worse. He sounded tired, like I had inconvenienced him. Red and blue lights finally hit the walls a few minutes later. The man ran. I heard officers shouting from the side yard, then more shouting near the garage. One officer came through the front door after I unlocked it with shaking hands and took me outside. They found him hiding behind a stack of old fencing near the property line. They opened the barrel after they moved me to the front of the house, but I still heard one of the officers swear. Another one told him to step back. Later, a detective explained only what he had to. The barrel contained human remains, but not one person. Parts from two people, wrapped separately. They had been kept somewhere else first, likely in the garage freezer, which had stopped working during the storm. That was why the smell had started. Rebecca wasn't in Florida. She had never gone. They found her car at a motel 3 towns over. She was alive, but terrified, and at first she refused to talk. Eventually they learned the man in the white pickup was her ex-husband. He had been using her garage for months after threatening her. She claimed she didn't know what was in the freezer until shortly before the trip. I don't know how much of that was true. What I do know is that she gave me the key anyway. She left me in that house with Pepper and a barrel beside the garage. The worst part came 2 weeks later when the detective called to ask one more question. He wanted to know exactly what time I first noticed the barrel. I told him the morning after the storm. He went quiet, then said, "Are you sure it wasn't there when you arrived?" I said yes. He thanked me and hung up. I found out from my mom later that Rebecca had told police the barrel had been there for days, but I knew it hadn't. Someone had brought it there while I was inside the house, sometime during that first stormy night, while I slept on the couch and Pepper kept walking to the back door.